Okay, this week we read the story Old MacDonald Had a Wood Shop, and you did a great job showing me your pictures on Flipgrid and picking the characters and what tool they had fun with, and I enjoyed seeing all of those. What I want to do today is I want to continue talking about characters, the characters that are in a story. Remember, characters are those animals or people that the story is about. And sometimes, and we realized in Old MacDonald Had a Wood Shop that our characters were animals, right? And are they real or make-believe? They were make-believe. They were building things, using tools, wearing clothes, all kinds of things. Kind of details were telling us that this story was a make-believe story. A fun story to listen to, but a make-believe one nonetheless, okay? All right, so whom is this story about? Right, it was about Old MacDonald, right? And Old MacDonald was a sheep, right? Okay. We talked about her yesterday. We talked about Old MacDonald yesterday. And we talked about what she was making for her friends. She was making a tiny little farm, right? Exactly. So we wanted to talk about how we would describe Old MacDonald. And we talked about her yesterday. And I know in our small groups, we talked about it and I asked some questions. I asked, what kind of friend is she? She's a nice friend, right? Because she was doing it. Why was she building that farm? She was building it so her friends would be happy, right? And have something fun to play with. So that would tell you that she's probably a kind friend, right? Okay, that would be our opinion of her. She's a kind friend. Do you think it takes a lot of work to build that farm? I do, exactly. So she's a hard worker too. From what we read in the story, our opinion would be she's a hard worker. So she's a kind friend and a hard worker. Are there any other animals or characters in the story? Right, there were a couple of them. Let's just take a look real quick. So there was Old MacDonald. Then a lot of you chose the cat came along, right, and took the drill. And then we had the goat come with the hammer. What happens to the goat's finger? What happens to him? He hammers his finger, right? Not so good. Maybe goats shouldn't be using hammers. Then we had the hen come in, right? Or the rooster come in. Very good. And the rooster came in with that chisel, that thing that you carve out wood with. And then we had the pig come. And the pig came with the file. And the file kind of makes things smooth and stuff like that. So the pig came. Then we had the big cow. And he came in with that screwdriver, right? Which you put in and you turn it so it makes things nice and tight. And then we had the dog, right? The dog, what do you think the dog was probably, since he had the paintbrush, do you think he was at the beginning of the job or do you think he was at the end of the job? Way to draw that conclusion. He would have been at the end of the job because he was coming in to paint everything, right? Okay, so they all are working together. So there were, let's count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were 6 different characters in that story, right? Working all together. Well, what was Old MacDonald's goal in this story? What was she trying to do? Right, she was trying to build that toy farm for all of her friends. What did she have to do to reach that goal? What did she have to do to reach that goal? To be able to do this, did she do it all by herself? No. Who did she have to work with? She had all of those other animals come to help her, right? All of those other animals. So if her goal was to build a farm for her little friends, a whole little farm for her friends, did she meet that goal? Did she reach it? Yep, the animals in Old MacDonald finished building that toy farm, right? Very good. All right, so those are the characters in our story, Old MacDonald Had a Wood Shop. Today, what I'm going to do is in a minute, I'm going to pause because I'm going to send you off to listen to a story called The Elves and the Shoemaker, okay? You're going to go listen to that story first. During that story, what I want you to be doing is I want you to be thinking about these questions as you're listening to The Elves and the Shoemaker, okay? And then you're going to come back to me. But I want you to be thinking, who is the story about? Who are the characters in The Elves and the Shoemaker? You're going to watch it on your computer, okay? Because I don't have the story at home. So you're going to do this at home. It's a really cute story. Who are the characters in the story? I want you to be thinking about that. The shoemaker in the story. What is he like? I want you to be thinking about him while you're listening to the story. How would you describe him to someone? Okay? What are the elves like in the story? What are the characters like? So the shoemaker and the elf, because you've already heard that in the title of the story, the elves and the shoemaker. Okay? And then I'm going to have one more question when you come back that I'm going to have you answer on Flipgrid for me. So I'm going to ask you to pause right now, and I'm going to ask you to go watch. It's the next link, the elves and the shoemaker. And then I'm going to have you come back to me, okay? So go watch the elves and the shoemaker and enjoy it, and be thinking about how you would describe those characters, the shoemaker and the elves, okay? And then you're going to come right back to me. Okay, did you like the story, The Elves and the Shoemaker? I love that story. I think it's a really neat story, and I love the pictures in it, and I love the person that's reading the story. So, you know, if it meets Mrs. Rooney's requirements, then I'm okay with it. All right, so I asked you to be thinking about who are the characters in that story? Who were the characters in that story? Okay, so if you said the shoemaker, yeah. The shoemaker's wife, she was in there, right? And the little elves, right? Okay, so those are the three characters. I'm sure there were people that came in and out of the shop to buy things towards the end, but those are the three characters I want to be thinking about right now, okay? All right, what is the shoemaker like? Let's think about him. Okay, how would we describe him? Well, part of the problem that he and his wife have is they don't have any money, right? So we would say maybe they're poor and they really need to make some money. Does he work hard at his job? Yeah, I think so. He's a hard worker. And is he nice? I think he's very nice, yes. So if I were going to describe the shoemaker, I would say that maybe he's poor, which, you know, is a reason why he needs to be making these shoes. I would say that he is a hard worker, and I would say that he's kind. That's how I would describe the shoemaker. How about those elves that come sneaking in? I shouldn't say sneaking, because they're not really sneaking, they're being nice. How would you describe the elves? Well, they're doing him a nice job, right? And they don't even tell him that they're doing it. He has to catch them doing it. So they're kind. I would call them hardworking too, right? Yeah, definitely hardworking. And they are kind. They are kind. But there's something else about them. There's another word I would think that I would use to describe them, because what do? They come in at night and they are making the shoes. So really, what are they doing? They're helping the shoemaker, right? So I would call them helpful. So I would say, just like the shoemaker, those elves are kind and they're hardworking. And I would also use the word that they are helpful. Very good. All right. My question to you, and I would like you to answer this on Flipgrid, okay, for me. Why did the shoemaker's wife make clothes for the elves? Why did she? So she made clothes for them because she noticed that their clothes were all, you know, old and torn. Why? Why do you think she made them clothes? Think about what they were doing for the shoemaker and his wife, and that should help you draw that conclusion of, why do you think the shoemaker's wife made those clothes for the elves? Okay, I'll look for your answers on Flipgrid, and I hope you enjoyed the story. Good job, friends.